Professor Nyleth adjusted the holographic display floating above her desk. 4 students sat in the curved amphitheater seats, each from a different corner of the galaxy. Their assignment folders glowed softly in front of them. Love, Nyleth said, letting the word hang in the air. Humans use this term constantly. Your task is to define it. Aresh, whose body resembled a collection of floating crystals that chimed softly with each thought, flickered with confusion. Professor, we have reviewed the literature. Humans claim to love their reproductive partners. They also love their offspring. But they also love their food, and their planets, and small furry creatures that provide no survival benefit. The term has no consistent meaning. Tovin's scaled head tilted to one side. His species chose mates based on genetic compatibility scores. Perhaps it is simply poor translation. Our language has 17 different words for bonding types. Humans seem to use only one. That is what you must discover, Nyleth said. She pulled up images on the display. Humans embracing, humans weeping, humans laughing together, humans holding small animals. In 3 months, humanity joins the Galactic Council. We must understand them, and they tell us that love is central to everything they do. Kira's antennae twitched. She came from a hive world where individual identity barely existed. This seems inefficient. Emotional attachment clouds judgment. The hive functions because we prioritize collective survival over individual preferences. Yet humans have survived and thrived, Nyleth pointed out. They wage wars over love. They write endless stories about it. They make life-altering decisions because of it. Some force drives this behavior, and we need to understand it before we share a government with them. Biss, whose gaseous form swirled inside a containment suit, pulsed with curiosity. What resources do we have for this study? All the human literature we have collected, Nyleth said. Databases of their entertainment media, psychological studies, and one more thing. She smiled, which her species did by darkening the skin around their eyes. In 1 week, our first human exchange student arrives. He is bringing what humans call a companion animal. A dog, Aresh repeated, crystals chiming as they accessed the database. A domesticated canine. Descended from pack predators. Humans keep them in their homes despite the resource cost. They feed them, Tovin said, reading from his own screen. They take them to medical facilities. They purchase toys for them. But dogs provide no labor in most cases. No food production. No protection that technology could not provide better. Exactly, Nyleth said. Humans say they love these animals. You will observe this human and his dog. You will document their interactions. And you will explain to me what love actually means. Class dismissed. The 4 students left the lecture hall together. They had been assigned as a research team, though none of them had chosen to work with the others. Cooperation was required for passing grades. We should establish a methodology, Aresh said. Their crystals rang with the tone that indicated systematic thinking. We observe, we record. We analyze patterns. We draw conclusions. Agreed, Tovin said. I suggest we create a hypothesis list. Perhaps love is simply a term for beneficial exchange. The human feeds the dog provides companionship, reducing stress hormones. Kira's mandibles clicked. Or it is a malfunction. An evolutionary dead end that persists because humans have eliminated most survival pressures through technology. We should not form conclusions before observation, Biss said. Their voice modulated through the suit's speakers. That is poor scientific practice. They entered the student collaboration space, a room designed to accommodate various atmospheric and gravitational needs. Aresh floated near the ceiling where the light was best. Tovin stretched out on a heated platform. Kira attached herself to a wall. I simply drifted in the center. I have accessed the human entertainment database, Kira said. There are approximately 4 million stories tagged with the word love. Many involve humans choosing potential mates, but many involve these dogs and other animals, and sometimes humans loving concepts like freedom or justice. How can one love a concept? Tovin asked. Concepts are not physical. They cannot be touched or protected or fed. Humans are strange, Aresh said. This is established fact. But they are also successful. Their planet is a death world by our standards. Extreme weather, dangerous predators, toxic plants, geological instability. Yet they not only survived but thrived. And they did this while maintaining these love bonds. Perhaps that is the key, Biss suggested. Perhaps love provides some survival advantage we do not recognize. Then our task is to identify that advantage, Tovin said. The human arrives in 1 week. His name is Oliver. His dog is named Rudy. We will observe every interaction. We will measure time expenditure, resource allocation, physical contact frequency, and vocal patterns. We will solve this puzzle, Kira said. The hive sent me here to understand alien species. I will not fail. Over the next 6 days, the 4 students prepared. They studied human body language guides. They learned about canine behavior patterns. They reviewed every scientific paper on human-animal bonding they could access. None of it made sense. Humans spent hours per day on dog care. They bought expensive food when cheaper options existed. They talked to dogs as if the animals could understand complex language. They displayed physical affection constantly, which seemed to serve no purpose. Tomorrow we will see this in person, Aresh said the night before Oliver's arrival. Tomorrow we begin real observation. I am curious, Biss admitted. I do not understand this feeling. Curiosity about something that seems so inefficient. That is the point of study, Tovin said, to transform the unknown into the known. But none of them were prepared for what they would actually witness. None of them could have predicted how a single dog's actions would change their understanding of not just humans, but of life itself. Rudy was coming. And with him, a lesson that no database or textbook could teach. The docking bay doors hissed open, and Oliver stepped through with a duffel bag slung over his shoulder. Behind him, on a blue leash, trotted a medium-sized dog with floppy ears and a wagging tail. Rudy had brown and white fur that looked slightly messy, as if he had just woken up from a nap. Aresh, Tovin, Chira, and Bice watched from an observation deck 1 level above. They had positioned themselves carefully to see everything without interfering. Subject has arrived, Kira said, recording the moment on her personal device. Canine appears healthy. Approximately 20 kilograms. Mixed genetic heritage based on physical features. Oliver walked to the registration desk where a Centauri official processed his documents. Rudy sat beside him, looking around the busy docking bay with interest. His tail never stopped moving. Note the tail motion, Tovin said. Database indicates this signals positive emotional state in canines. But why? Biss asked. What purpose does broadcasting emotional state serve? They watched as Oliver finished the registration process. He bent down and scratched Rudy behind the ears. The dog's tail wagged faster. Oliver said something they could not hear from this distance, and Rudy's tongue came out, making him look like he was smiling. Physical contact initiated by human, Arish noted. No apparent practical purpose. The action does not clean the animal or check for injury. Oliver picked up his bag and started walking toward the residential section. Rudy walked beside him, occasionally looking up at Oliver's face. When they passed other aliens in the corridor, Rudy moved slightly closer to Oliver's leg. The 4 students followed at a distance, trying to remain inconspicuous. This proved difficult since Aresh glowed faintly, Kira's multiple legs made clicking sounds, and Biss's containment suit hummed. Oliver reached his assigned quarters and opened the door. The room was standard student size, about 30 square meters, with a sleeping platform, a desk, and a small food preparation area. Oliver immediately pulled a folded blanket from his bag and spread it on the floor near the sleeping platform. Rudy. Bed, Oliver said, pointing to the blanket. Rudy walked over to the blanket, circled 3 times and lay down with a contented sigh. Interesting, Tovin whispered. The students had positioned themselves near an air vent that allowed them to hear into Oliver's room. The human provides the animal with its own designated resting space. Oliver unpacked his belongings. He placed a water bowl and a food bowl on the floor. He hung clothes in the small closet. He set up his computer terminal. All normal activities, but every few minutes he would glance at Rudy. And every time Oliver looked at him, Rudy's tail would thump against the floor. They are exchanging acknowledgement signals, Kira said, but no information is being transmitted. No warnings, no requests, simply acknowledgement of presence. After unpacking, Oliver sat on his sleeping platform and pulled out a small rubber ball from his bag. He held it up. Rudy's head popped up immediately, ears perked forward. Want to play? Oliver asked. Rudy's entire body started wiggling. Oliver tossed the ball across the room. Rudy launched himself after it, grabbed it in his mouth and brought it back to Oliver. Oliver threw it again. Rudy retrieved it again. This continued for nearly 15 minutes. This is the play behavior mentioned in the literature, Biss said, but I do not understand the purpose. The ball is not food. Catching it develops no useful skill. Yet both human and canine appear to derive satisfaction from this activity. The human's facial expression indicates pleasure, Aresh observed. Muscle tension has decreased. Breathing is relaxed. The dog shows similar signs. After the play session, Oliver poured food into Rudy's bowl. Rudy ate enthusiastically while Oliver prepared his own meal. Then Oliver sat at his desk to review course materials while Rudy lay on his blanket, chewing a synthetic bone toy. The students watched for 2 hours. Nothing remarkable happened. Oliver studied. Rudy napped. Occasionally, Oliver would reach down to pet Rudy without looking away from his screen. Rudy's tail would wag in response. "This is inefficient use of time," Kira finally said. "The human divides his attention between study and the animal. He would learn faster without the distraction. Yet his stress markers are lower than average for new students," Arish countered, using a bioscanner. "His heart rate is calm. His body temperature is stable. Perhaps the animal provides some regulatory function." As evening approached by station time, Oliver stood and stretched. "Come on, Rudy, let's go explore." He attached the leash and they left the quarters together. The students followed again, maintaining their distance. Oliver walked through the main corridors, letting Rudy sniff at various objects. Other students and faculty stopped to look at Rudy. Some asked questions. Oliver smiled each time and let them pet Rudy if they wanted. The human shares the animal with others, Tovin noted, allowing physical contact. This contradicts the concept of possession. Unless possession is not the point, Biss said slowly. Perhaps the human enjoys seeing others interact with the dog. They reached a recreational area with an open green space, one of the few places on the station with real grass and plants. Oliver removed Rudy's leash and the dog immediately started running in wide circles, pure joy evident in every movement. Oliver laughed and ran with him for a few minutes before sitting on a bench to catch his breath. Rudy ran for another 5 minutes, then trotted back to Oliver and put his head on Oliver's knee, panting happily. Oliver stroked Rudy's head with both hands. "Good boy," Oliver said softly. "Such a good boy. I'm glad you're here with me." Rudy's tail wagged so hard his whole back end moved. The 4 students looked at each other. 3 days of observation had given them data. They had recordings. They had measurements. They had detailed notes on every interaction, but they were no closer to understanding what they were actually witnessing. "We need more time," Arish said. The others agreed. They would continue watching. They would continue recording. But a small part of each of them was beginning to suspect that understanding might require more than observation. It might require something they did not yet possess, something humans called feeling. The alarm echoed through every corridor on the station, not the gentle chime that signaled shift changes, but the harsh pulsing wail that meant real danger. Red emergency lights flashed in rhythmic patterns. "All personnel evacuate Sector 7, the automated voice announced. "Plasma conduit breach. Repeat, evacuate Sector 7 immediately." Arish's crystals turned sharp and discordant. "Sector 7. That is where the biochemistry labs are located." Oliver had a sample cataloging session scheduled there this afternoon, Tovin said, checking his data pad. Their observation of the human had become routine over the past week. They knew his schedule as well as their own. The 4 students rushed toward Sector 7, moving against the flow of people evacuating. Emergency doors were sealing automatically, dividing the station into safe zones. They reached the main corridor just as the final blast door to Sector 7 began to close. On the wrong side of that door, in the visitor waiting area, was Rudy. The dog was leashed to a bench, which was standard procedure. Animals were not allowed in active laboratory spaces. Oliver must have secured him there before going inside to work. Rudy was losing his mind. The dog barked continuously, a sharp, desperate sound that cut through even the emergency sirens. He pulled at the leash so hard the bench scraped against the floor. His eyes were fixed on the sealed laboratory door where smoke had started to seep out around the edges. "The canine is in distress," Kira observed, stating the obvious. 2 security officers approached Rudy, trying to calm him. One extended a hand slowly, speaking in soothing tones. Rudy snapped at the air near the officer's hand, not quite biting, but making his point clear. "Stay back. Unusual behavior," Tovin said. "Database indicates dogs are typically friendly with non-threatening individuals. But this one is displaying aggression. Rudy returned to barking at the sealed door. He scratched at the metal with his front paws, leaving faint marks. His barks turned into howls, a sound that made several passing aliens stop despite the emergency. A security officer spoke into a communicator. "We cannot remove the animal from the area. It is becoming aggressive. Requesting animal control." "Negative," came the response. "All personnel are responding to the breach. You will have to manage it." One officer produced a calming spray designed to work on most carbon-based life forms. He approached Rudy from the side. The moment the spray released, Rudy twisted away and barked even more frantically. "Why does it not flee?" Bliss asked. "The area is dangerous. The animal must sense this, yet it remains." Smoke was now pouring steadily from under the laboratory door. The acrid smell of burning chemicals filled the air. Rudy coughed but did not move away from the door. He placed his front paws on the door and continued howling. "Its human is inside," Arash said quietly. "Oliver is inside that room." Kira's antennae twitched. "The canine cannot help. It cannot open the door. It cannot extinguish fires. Staying serves no purpose." But Rudy stayed. More security arrived with proper cutting equipment. The breach had caused the door's emergency locks to engage incorrectly, jamming it shut. They began cutting through the reinforced metal. The process would take several minutes. Rudy watched every movement they made, his barking reduced to continuous whining. When they paused to change cutting tools, he howled again. When they resumed, he went back to whining. "Bring water for the dog," one security officer said. Another brought a bowl. Rudy ignored it completely. His focus never wavered from that door. An officer brought food pellets designed for canines. Rudy did not even glance at them. All of his attention, every fiber of his being, was concentrated on the space where Oliver was trapped. The 4 students watched in silence now, their scientific detachment beginning to crack. The raw intensity of Rudy's distress was affecting them in ways they could not quite name. "He knows Oliver is in danger," Biss said. "But he can do nothing," Tovin replied. "Remaining here does not increase Oliver's survival chances. It may decrease the dog's own survival if the fire spreads." "Yet he remains," Arash said. Their crystals were resonating at a frequency they had never experienced before. Something almost painful. "He chooses to remain." The cutting team finally broke through. The door fell inward with a crash. Smoke billowed out and heat washed over everyone in the corridor. Visibility inside the lab was nearly zero. Rudy did not hesitate. He lunged forward, breaking the leash attachment with pure strength. The security officer shouted, but Rudy was already disappearing into the smoke. "No." An officer moved to follow, but another held him back. "Too dangerous. The fire suppression system will activate soon. There is a human in there, and now a dog. We cannot risk more lives until we have proper equipment." The students pushed closer. Through the smoke they could hear Rudy barking. Not the panicked barking from before, but different. Sharper, more insistent. A pattern. "Bark, pause, bark, bark, pause. He is signaling," Kira said. "He found Oliver and is indicating location." The fire suppression system engaged, flooding the room with foam. The smoke began to clear. Emergency medical personnel rushed in with breathing equipment. They found Oliver collapsed on the floor near a table, unconscious from smoke inhalation. Rudy stood over him, 3 legs planted firmly, one front paw resting on Oliver's chest. His fur was singed in places. His paws were burned from the hot floor. He was coughing from the smoke he had inhaled, but his eyes were clear and fixed on the medical team approaching. His lips pulled back, showing teeth. The message was obvious. "You can help, but you will not take him without going through me first." "The animal is injured," a medic said. "We need to sedate both of them to provide treatment." "No," another medic said, older and more experienced. She approached slowly, hands visible, speaking softly. "Rudy, that is your name, yes? We are here to help Oliver. We will make him better. But we need you to let us work." Rudy's growl did not stop, but it quieted slightly. The medic continued. "You found him. You saved him. Good boy. You are such a good boy. Now let us help." Something in her tone, or perhaps the words themselves, reached Rudy. His growl stopped. His defensive posture relaxed slightly. But he did not move away from Oliver. "Can you move aside, Rudy? Just a little?" Rudy took one small step to the side, never taking his eyes off Oliver's face. The medical team went to work immediately, placing a breathing mask on Oliver, checking his vital signs, preparing him for transport. Through it all, Rudy stayed within touching distance. When they lifted Oliver onto a stretcher, Rudy followed. When they tried to stop him from entering the medical transport, Rudy's growl returned. "Let him come," the experienced medic said. "They need to stay together." As the transport doors closed with both Oliver and Rudy inside, the 4 students stood in the smoky corridor. They were supposed to be taking notes, recording observations, analyzing the data. Instead, they simply stared at the place where Rudy had been standing guard over his unconscious human. The place where a small animal had risked everything for someone who could not possibly understand or reward such sacrifice. "That," Arash said, their crystals chiming with something that might have been awe. "That was not instinct." "No," Tovin agreed, his voice unusually soft. "That was something else entirely. They did not yet have a name for it. But they were beginning to understand." The medical wing maintained a constant soft light, designed not to disturb patients but to allow staff to work at any hour. Oliver lay in a bed, breathing mask covering his face, monitors displaying his vital signs in steady, rhythmic patterns. The doctor said he would wake soon. His body just needed rest and time to clear the toxins from his lungs. In a recovery kennel 3 rooms away, Rudy lay on a padded surface. Medical staff had treated his burned paws and the patches where his fur had been singed. They had given him medication for the smoke inhalation. They had checked every system and declared him stable. But Rudy would not rest. He whined constantly, a high-pitched sound of distress that could be heard throughout the medical wing. He refused food. He refused water. When medical staff tried to comfort him, he would quiet for a moment, then resume whining. His eyes stayed fixed on the door, the barrier between him and wherever Oliver was. "The animal is causing problems," a nurse told the head doctor. "His stress levels are dangerous, but he will not accept comfort. He will not eat or drink. He is making himself worse." The doctor, a centauri named Pallas, reviewed Rudy's charts. All physical injuries were healing well. The smoke damage to his lungs was minimal. But his heart rate was elevated. His body temperature was too high. The stress was taking a real toll. Pallas had been studying human medicine for years in preparation for their integration into the Galactic Council. She had read about the bond between humans and their dogs. But reading about something and witnessing it were very different experiences. "Move the dog to the human's room," she said. "But protocol does not account for this situation," Pallas interrupted. "The animal's distress is medical, not behavioral. He needs his human. Move him." 10 minutes later, staff wheeled Rudy's recovery bed into Oliver's room. The moment Rudy saw Oliver, his whining changed tone. Still distressed, but different. Hope mixed with concern. They positioned Rudy's bed beside Oliver's, close enough that Rudy could see his human clearly. Rudy immediately tried to stand to reach Oliver, but his injured paws made him stumble. "Easy," a nurse said, gently restraining him. "You must rest too." Rudy settled, but remained alert, his eyes never leaving Oliver's face. After a few minutes, his whining stopped. His heart rate began to decrease. He laid his head on his paws but kept watching. The 4 students had been given permission to observe from an adjacent viewing room. They had been there for 6 hours now, taking shifts, but never leaving the vigil completely unattended. "He has not eaten in 14 hours, Tovin noted. "For a creature that size, this is approaching dangerous." "He will not eat until he knows his human is safe," Arash said. Their crystals were glowing with a soft, steady light. "We have watched him refuse food 6 times. This is not rational behavior," Kira insisted, but her voice lacked its usual certainty. "He is harming himself." "For what?" "Oliver is receiving medical care. Rudy's presence does not improve Oliver's condition." "Does it not?" Bice asked. They had been the quietest of the group during this vigil. Look at Oliver's readings when Rudy was separated. Heart rate was elevated. Stress hormones were higher. After they brought Rudy in, both decreased. It was true. The monitors showed Oliver's body relaxing even though he was unconscious, as if some part of him knew Rudy was near. Time passed slowly in the medical wing. Station day became station night. The students remained. They had abandoned all pretense of detached scientific observation. They were simply watching two beings who cared for each other. Rudy did not sleep. His eyes would droop, exhaustion pulling at him, but each time they began to close, he would jerk awake and check on Oliver. As long as Oliver was still, Rudy remained vigilant. "He is guarding him," Aresh said. "Even here, where Oliver is safe, Rudy believes he must stand watch." "Why?" Kira asked. The question was not rhetorical this time. She genuinely wanted to understand. "Because that is what love does," a voice said behind them. Professor Nyleth had entered the viewing room without them noticing. She came to stand beside her students, looking through the window at the human and his dog. "You asked me to explain love," Nyleth continued. "I could not, because love is not explained. It is witnessed. It is experienced. It is demonstrated through action." "The dog is harming himself," Tovin said. "How is this love? Love should mean wanting the best for another being." "Love means being present," Nyleth said. "Even when presence is difficult. Even when presence causes personal cost. Rudy would rather suffer alongside Oliver than be comfortable without him." "That is illogical," Kira said, but her voice was very quiet. "Yes," Nyleth agreed. "It is completely illogical. It is inefficient. It provides no survival advantage in this specific moment, and it is more powerful than any logic you will ever learn." The professor left them to their observations. The students remained silent for a long time. On the second day, Oliver's breathing changed. It became deeper, more regular. The doctor said this was a good sign. He was approaching consciousness. Rudy's head lifted immediately. His ears perked forward. He made a small sound, not quite a whine, more like a question. Oliver's fingers twitched. Then his hand moved slowly toward the edge of the bed as if reaching for something. Rudy stretched his neck as far as he could, extending his nose toward Oliver's hand. They could not quite touch. The beds were too far apart. A nurse noticed and moved Rudy's bed closer, just a few centimeters. Enough. Oliver's hand found Rudy's nose. Even unconscious, his fingers moved gently, a familiar petting motion. Rudy's tail began to wag. Slowly at first, then faster. His whole body relaxed in a way it had not since the accident. "Physical contact," Biss said. "It means something to both of them." "It means everything," Arish corrected. "Watch their vital signs." Both Oliver and Rudy's readings improved simultaneously. Heart rates synchronized. Breathing patterns matched. Two separate beings functioning as one connected system. Hours later, Oliver's eyes finally opened. They were unfocused at first, confused. He looked around the medical room, trying to understand where he was. Then his gaze found Rudy. "Hey, buddy," Oliver whispered, his voice rough from the breathing mask. Rudy's tail wagged so hard his entire back half moved despite his injuries. He made small, happy sounds, trying to stay quiet, but unable to contain his joy. Oliver's hand, still resting near Rudy's nose, began scratching gently behind the dog's ears. "You're okay. We're both okay." Rudy licked Oliver's hand once, gentle and reverent. A doctor entered to check Oliver's condition. Oliver submitted to the examination but kept one hand on Rudy the entire time. "Your dog saved your life," the doctor said. "He found you in the smoke when we could not see. He guided us to you." "Of course he did," Oliver said. It was not pride in his voice. It was simple certainty. "That's what we do for each other." After the doctor left, Oliver looked at Rudy seriously. "You got hurt because of me." Rudy's tail continued wagging. He did not understand the words, but he understood the tone. He pressed his nose against Oliver's palm. "I would do the same for you," Oliver said quietly. "You know that, right? I would run into fire for you too." The four students watching from the observation room felt something shift inside themselves. Not in their minds where logic lived. Somewhere deeper. Somewhere they had not known existed until this moment. Love was not a word to be defined. It was a choice to be made over and over, regardless of cost. It was presence and sacrifice and joy all tangled together in something that made no sense and perfect sense at the same time. They were beginning to understand, not with their intellect, but with something more fundamental, something human, even though they were not human at all. The collaboration room felt different now. The same equipment, the same comfortable accommodations for each species, but the atmosphere had changed. The 4 students gathered not because an assignment required it, but because they needed to talk about what they had witnessed. "We have data," Tovin began, his clawed hand gesturing at the display screens covered in observations, measurements, recordings, weeks of data. "But I cannot write the report Professor Nyleth expects." "Why not?" Kira asked. She already knew the answer, but she wanted to hear someone else say it first. "Because the data does not explain what we saw," Tovin said. "I can document the time Rudy spent without eating. I can measure his stress hormones. I can track Oliver's recovery patterns. But these numbers do not capture what actually happened." Arish's crystals chimed softly. "We approach this as a logic problem. Define love. Categorize it. Understand it through observation and analysis. But love is not logical," Biss said. Their gaseous form swirled more actively than usual, a sign of agitation. "We have been looking for rational explanations for fundamentally irrational behavior." "Not irrational," Arish corrected gently. "Non-rational. There is a difference. Irrational means acting against logic destructively. Non-rational means operating on a different system entirely." Kira's mandibles clicked in her species equivalent of a frustrated sigh. "My hive sent me here to learn about aliens, to understand how individual species function, but I find myself questioning my own society. We function efficiently. We survive well. But do we love?" The question hung in the air. None of them had an easy answer. "I have been thinking about my breeding coalition," Tovin said slowly. "We are matched by genetic algorithms. We produce offspring with optimal traits. We fulfill our biological purpose efficiently. But there is no choice in it. No emotion? No Rudy running into fire, would you?" Biss asked. "Run into fire for your coalition partner?" Tovin was quiet for a long moment. "No," he finally admitted. "I would notify emergency services. I would wait safely. I would do the logical thing. And they would do the same for me." "Is that wrong?" Kira asked. "I do not know," Tovin said. "But it is different. Watching Oliver and Rudy, I felt something. An absence in my own life. Something missing that I had never known existed." Arish's crystals shifted through several colors before settling on a soft blue. "I have been researching human literature more deeply. Not academic papers, but their stories, their songs, their poetry. Do you know what I found?" The others waited. "Humans consider love to be the point," Arish said. "Not survival, not efficiency, not even happiness exactly. Love itself is the goal. They structure their entire lives around it. They make decisions based on it. They measure success by it. That explains much about their behavior," Bice said. "Humans will sacrifice efficiency for connection. They will choose harder paths if it means maintaining bonds. Even their wars are often fought over love. Love of homeland, love of ideology, love of freedom. They are dangerous because of it," Kira said. "I see that now. A species that values love over survival will fight with intensity we cannot match. They do not calculate odds. They calculate commitment. But they are also valuable because of it," Arish added. "A species that can love will also protect, cooperate, and sacrifice for others, including alien others." There was a knock on their door. Professor Nyleth entered carrying a data pad. "I expected your report 2 days ago," she said, but her tone was not stern, almost amused. "Professor," Arish said, "we cannot write the report you assigned." "Oh?" Nyleth settled into a chair designed for her species. "Why not?" "Because we cannot define love," Tovin said. "We have observed it. We have witnessed it. But we cannot reduce it to a definition that would satisfy academic standards." Nyleth nodded slowly. "So you have learned the real lesson?" "There was a real lesson?" Kira's antennae twitched with surprise. "Of course," Nyleth said. "The assignment was not actually about defining love. It was about recognizing the limits of pure logic. The Galactic Council is about to welcome a species that operates partially on emotion, on bonds that make no strategic sense. We needed to understand that not everything can be analyzed away." She pulled up a display showing news from the council chambers. Humanity's integration vote is in 3 days. The council is divided. Some see humans as chaotic, dangerous, too emotional. Others see potential allies. Your observations have been forwarded to the decision-makers. Our observations? Biss echoed. But we could not even complete the assignment. Your observations of the incident, Nihilith clarified. The dog that ran into fire. The human who would have done the same. That simple demonstration of love has sparked more debate than any diplomatic presentation. She stood, preparing to leave. Write what you witnessed. Not an academic analysis. Simply tell the story of Oliver and Rudy. Tell it truthfully. That will be your report. After she left, the 4 students looked at each other. A story, Tovin said. Not data. Not analysis. A story. Humans do love stories, Aresh said. Perhaps that is how love is meant to be communicated. Not through definitions, but through demonstration. They began to work, not as researchers compiling data, but as witnesses sharing what they had seen. They wrote about Oliver playing with Rudy for no productive reason, about Rudy's distress when separated from his human, about the dog running into smoke to find his person, about the vigil at the bedside, about 2 beings who chose each other completely. As they wrote, something unexpected happened. Each of them began to share examples from their own observations of other relationships on the station. Aresh mentioned 2 students from different species who studied together every evening, clearly enjoying each other's company beyond academic necessity. Tovin talked about a cafeteria worker who always remembered everyone's preferences and asked about their days. Kira described a maintenance crew that worked with unusual coordination, joking and helping each other beyond requirement. Love is everywhere, Kira said with wonder. Once you recognize it, you see it in many forms. Not just human-dog bonds, but friendships, kindness, care that exceeds duty. We were looking for a specifically human thing, Biss said. But perhaps love is universal. Humans just acknowledge it more openly. They name it. They celebrate it. They build their lives around it. And we can learn from that, Tovin said. We do not have to become human. But we can recognize love in our own lives. We can choose to value it. Arish's crystals rang with a clear, bright tone. I want to tell Oliver thank you. He and Rudy taught us something our professors could not. He will be released from medical tomorrow, Kira said. We should visit, the report could wait. Understanding had to come first. And understanding, they now knew, came through connection. Through choosing to engage with others not because it was efficient, but because it mattered. They were learning to love. Not perfectly, not completely, but genuinely, and that was enough to begin. 6 months changed everything. The Galactic Council chamber was designed to accommodate thousands of species, with specialized atmosphere zones, gravity adjustments, and seating appropriate for every body type imaginable. Today it was filled to capacity. The vote on human membership had drawn representatives from every corner of known space. In a small observation gallery, 4 students sat together. Aresh, Tovin, Kira, and Biss had become friends during their research project. Not colleagues or classmates, but genuine friends who chose to spend time together because they enjoyed each other's company. Love, they had learned, came in many forms. Below them, the council floor buzzed with conversation. The debate had raged for days. Humans were too emotional. Humans were too aggressive. Humans formed attachments that clouded judgment. The criticisms went on, but there were supporters too. Humans were innovative. Humans were loyal allies. Humans brought a perspective that the galaxy needed. Species that had worked with human scientists and diplomats spoke passionately about their experiences. The students' report had been circulated widely. Love as evolutionary advantage. Observations of human-canine bonding had become something of a sensation. Not because of its academic merit, but because of its honesty. They had simply told the story of Oliver and Rudy. And somehow, that story had reached across species barriers to touch something universal. The human delegation is entering, Kira said, her antennae perking forward. A group of humans walked onto the council floor, led by Ambassador Rodriguez, an older woman with gray hair and kind eyes. Behind her came various human representatives, including cultural ambassadors, scientists, and military liaisons. And at the very back, walking calmly beside a young man in a student uniform, was a medium-sized dog with brown and white fur. They brought Rudy, Biss said with something that might have been happiness in their modulated voice. Of course they did, Aresh replied. Their crystals chimed with amusement. Humans go everywhere with their dogs if they can. Oliver took a seat in the human delegation area. Rudy settled beside him, well-behaved and calm despite the chaos of thousands of aliens in one space. His tail wagged gently when Oliver's hand came to rest on his head. The council speaker, a tall, willowy being from a species that communicated partially through color shifts, called for order. We will now hear final statements before the vote. Ambassador Rodriguez, you may speak. The ambassador stood and walked to the central platform. She did not carry notes. She simply looked around at the gathered representatives. Honorable council members, she began. You have heard many arguments about humanity over these past months. You have heard our history, our achievements, our failures. You have read reports and analysis. You have debated our worthiness to join your ranks. She paused, letting her gaze sweep across the chamber. But I want to talk about something simpler. I want to talk about a dog. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. This was not the formal diplomatic speech they had expected. 6 months ago, a fire broke out on the university station. A young man was trapped. His dog, Rudy, had every reason to flee to safety. Instead, he ran into danger. Not because he was trained to. Not because he expected reward. But because the person he loved was in trouble. Rodriguez gestured toward where Oliver and Rudy sat. Some of you have read the report written by 4 brave students who observed this event. Some of you dismissed it as an anomaly, a single example that proves nothing about humanity as a whole. She smiled. You are right to be skeptical. So let me tell you about other dogs. About search and rescue dogs that dig through rubble to find survivors. About therapy dogs that comfort the sick and dying. About service dogs that guide the blind and alert the deaf and calm the anxious. About family dogs that sleep beside human children, protecting them through the night. Now let me tell you about humans. About firefighters who run into burning buildings. About doctors who travel to plague zones. About teachers who spend their own money on supplies for students. About strangers who stop to help on the roadside. About parents who sacrifice everything for children who may never thank them. The chamber had gone very quiet. You want to know what makes humanity different? Rodriguez asked. We love foolishly. We love dangerously. We love things that cannot love us back. We love ideas and causes and each other and creatures from other species entirely. We form bonds that make no logical sense. And those bonds make us stronger than any technology, any weapon, any strategy could ever make us. She looked directly at the opposition bloc, the representatives who had argued most strongly against human membership. You are right to fear us. We are dangerous. We will die for the things we love. But we will also live for them, build for them, fight for them, and if you let us, we will extend that love to you. Rodriguez stepped back. Humanity does not ask to join your council because we are perfect. We ask because we believe in connection across differences. We believe in choosing cooperation over isolation. We believe in love as a guiding principle. And if you accept us, we promise to love this galaxy as fiercely as Rudy loves Oliver. The vote was called. The chamber filled with light as representatives indicated their choices through various methods. Color changes, tonal shifts, gestural patterns, electronic signals. The results appeared on the central display. 68% in favor. Humanity was accepted. The human delegation erupted in quiet celebration, mindful of chamber protocol. Oliver hugged Rudy, who licked his face enthusiastically, tail wagging hard enough to shake his whole body. In the observation gallery, the 4 students watched with their own form of celebration. Aresh's crystals sang a harmony of joy. Tuvin's scales flushed with pleased color. Kira's antenna performed a happy dance. Bess's form sparkled and swirled. We did this, Kira said. Our report helped this happen. No, Aresh corrected gently. Oliver and Rudy did this. We just told their story. And now humans will tell stories across the galaxy, Tovin said. They will bring their love with them. They will change us all. Good, Biss said simply. We could use changing. After the ceremony, the students were invited to meet the human delegation. They approached Oliver somewhat nervously, despite having written extensively about him. Oliver saw them coming and smiled. Hey, you're the students who wrote the report. Everyone's been talking about it. We simply documented what we observed, Aresh said. You documented more than that, Oliver replied. You understood. That means a lot. Rudy, who had been calmly observing the aliens, suddenly wagged his tail and approached Aresh. He sniffed at their crystalline form with curiosity. Rudy, Be polite, Oliver said, but he was smiling. It is fine, Aresh said. They carefully extended a crystalline appendage. Rudy sniffed it, then licked it once, apparently deciding Aresh was a friend. Aresh's crystals rang with pure delight. I am being loved by a dog. This is a significant moment in my life. The others laughed. Even Kira, whose species did not naturally laugh, made a clicking sound that approximated amusement. Over the next hour, they talked with Oliver about everything. About the fire, the recovery, the strange experience of being famous for something so simple, and about what came next, now that humans were part of the galactic community. We will make mistakes, Oliver said honestly. We are messy and emotional, and sometimes we love the wrong things or love them the wrong way. But we will keep trying. We will keep reaching out. We will keep forming bonds. That is all anyone can do, Tovin said. It was something he had learned from watching Oliver and Rudy. Perfection was not required. Effort was enough. As the day ended and the chamber began to empty, the 4 students walked back to the university station together. They talked about their next semester, about their own futures, about the strange and wonderful fact that they had become part of a story that changed history. Do you think we will stay friends? Kira asked. After we graduate and return to our home worlds? Yes, Aresh said with certainty. Because we choose to. That is what love is. Choosing connection even when separation would be easier. I like that definition, Bice said. Better than anything in our original assignment. They reached the station and prepared to go their separate ways to their quarters. Before they parted, Tovin said, "Thank you for teaching me that efficiency is not the only measure of value. Thank you for teaching me that the hive is not the only way to belong," Kira added. "Thank you for teaching me that form does not limit connection," Biss said. "Thank you for teaching me new harmonies," Aresh finished. They were not human. They would never be human. But they had learned something from humanity that would stay with them forever. They had learned to love, and across the galaxy in 1,000 different forms that lesson was spreading. Because humans had arrived, and humans brought love with them wherever they went. Even dogs understood that, especially dogs.